Hello, all you beautiful gamers out there. I'm Totem Lord.
And I am Toto the Mark.
Mwahaha. And today we're here. We're to talk about a game that I don't think really gets a whole lot of love. It's a game by the name of Axiom Verge. It's a neat little indie title that is very Metroid-vania, developed and made by one guy, Thomas Happ, which is really interesting that he actually went through and made the entire game all by himself. I don't know if you studied it too much or if you knew too much about that.
Didn't know it was done by one guy, but it makes a lot of sense now that you mention it.
Yeah, just a really well done game that's just, I don't know. In my opinion, it's on a whole nother level, and I kind of just wanted to give it some love on the channel here today. Um, so yes. Hmm.
One of the great things about the Switch is that there are more games available. I'm not trying to, really promote the Switch or anything, but it does have more games than any other system I've ever seen, both in terms of Nintendo's old library and in terms of the incredible wide amount of independent games. And this is one of the best.
Oh yes. So let's get down to the first thing that you see in the game: the graphics. You want to lead off on graphics?
Yeah, graphically, it is a lot of 8-bit goodness. That's what he was going for. This is to some degree a cry out for the good old days of Nintendo, and it does express a lot of what 8-bit graphics can portray, sometimes to a frightening effect. They are not full motion screens or cut screens. There are cut screens, but not cut scenes. Just like the old Nintendo games like Ninja Gaiden and so forth and so on. And but it tells us a very convincing story through those cards, through those cut screens, and quite good. And the gameplay, it's effective. It's very reminiscent of, and we're going to be hearing this a lot of games like Metroid and Castlevania. Uh, but we'll get into that later.
Oh yeah. To me, the graphics were quite the visual treat. They're kind of, I don't know, a lot of darker colors, but you're kind of in like in the sci-fi fantasy world. You're not really sure what's going on. And the graphic, I don't know, I felt like they fit very well. They kind of keep you on the edge of, you don't really know what's going on visually.
Yeah, there's a certain surreal nature to it, but I mean, it's still a very linear game, but it takes a lot of the failings of 8-bit systems, i.e. being overloaded by RAM, pixelated, dead pixels, not dead pixels, but misplaced pixels, and it utilizes them into the story to create a whole new story element, which is one of the things I really enjoy about the game. In other words, you'll see like things blinking on and off, and it's part of the problem of this video game world. It's part of the story. It's part of what you need to utilize. I like that. I think it's clever.
Oh yeah, very much so. And throughout, like you'll see like glitches that are happening inside the game, and you're not really sure. The thing is, even though you're not really sure what's going on, it does have a purpose in the game. So it's just really neat how they integrated that into the whole thing. So let's
Yeah.
move on to sound, unless you had to add to that.
No.
Yeah, sound was probably my favorite part of this entire game. You said you only put in a couple hours into it, right?
I only went. Yeah, I think I only did about 10% of the game.
Okay. I honestly, the soundtrack is just amazing. It it really fits the mood perfectly. Like it starts off kind of brooding, kind of mellow, and then it just really amps up in different parts of the world that you visit. Just I don't know. I've never seen a soundtrack that fit a game so well.
Again, you're going to hear me do this multiple times. And keep in mind that probably my all-time favorite franchise is Metroid. This game, the songs are very much just like Metroid. Metroid has a haunting theme to it. The sound is designed musically and in terms of sound effects to connote a certain level of solitude, of fear, of and when things, even these little dinky 8-bit figures come out, the sound is very effective. There are creatures that attack you that scream, and it works. And the melodies are great. I actually would like a copy of the soundtrack. And me comparing it to Metroid is nothing but a compliment. Okay.
Speaking of the soundtrack, the version I got actually came with a soundtrack and I think a DVD that like went over like the making of Axiom Verge, and
Ooh.
it came with a bunch of neat little goodies. Another neat little tidbit that has nothing to do with the game itself, but apparently people who bought the game, a portion of that money went to like the creator's son to help him with some kind of disease. So
That would make sense. Yeah, I would even suggests that there's some things suggestive about seeing the world through a different prism, a different lens, uh, uh, that were akin to what I think this gentleman's son is suffering from. Uh,
Oh,
I mean, that's just my interpretation. Don't worry about it. It's an 8-bit game. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's what it feels like to me.
an interesting theory nonetheless. But yes, sound is awesome. I freaking love it. I'll even like go onto YouTube and just turn on parts of songs and just to kind of like while I'm doing dishes, I'll turn it on and just kind of get amped up and kind of help wake me up because coffee sometimes only goes so far. Go ahead and bash me in the comments for that comment. Down with coffee. All right, next let's move on to gameplay. What are your thoughts on gameplay that come to mind?
I'm actually really happy with it. I do recommend. I think the controls are fairly precise. Usually games like this, where it's a lot of multi-platforming, a lot of jumping. Uh, um, you need precise control, especially with an 8-bit action level, where 8-bit games are known for being kind of unforgiving. This game is very forgiving, or rather a little more forgiving, and the control is tight. Especially, I would recommend you use an alternative controller with an actual cross pad, uh, or use the analog joystick. But that being said, if you've ever done any kind of platforming, this will be pure gaming goodness. It's razor sharp. You can go where you want to go. The guy was really thinking about what he was doing when he was programming it. It's very clear.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree on the tight controls. I don't feel like the game ever like really got cheap at any point in the game. I felt like anytime I got damaged, it was probably my fault, or maybe I was just trying to burrow my way through and was just kind of careless. But yeah, anytime I died or anything, it was nothing that I couldn't go back through and improve on. It was never luck based. I guess is my biggest point I want to make there.
Yeah. I'd like to add to that, just for the overall gameplay, which occurs to me, uh, we're not really giving you a good picture of it. Again, it's in the spirit of the Metroid-vania games, where you're an explorer, you have certain abilities and power-ups that allow you to explore a certain level. You can't get to a certain area, you have to go to another area of the playing field, get another power-up, explore further. It's very much that. Like I said, lots of platforming, lots of running and gunning,
Oh yeah.
and nice dollop of puzzle solving as well. So it's a good blend.
And also, sticking to gameplay, I thought the power ups were really unique. I'd never seen anything like them. You get your standard guns. Some of them are spray guns. Some of them will shoot out in 8 directions, and they all have their uses for like Mark said, puzzle solving. There's actually a gun, or you get like a drill gun too, which I thought was really cool. Maybe that has happened in the 8-bit world. I'm sure it has. Think games like Dig Dug aside.
Yeah, right.
But there's also another gun that actually that took out the glitches, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, like I said, the anti-rezzing and what looks to be glitches are actually points where you can access with this particular weapon. And I love that they made what used to be errors in other older games into an environmental, part of the overall environment and play mechanic.
Yeah. So, yeah, tight controls, unique items, great atmosphere so far. Move on to the story. The story, would you describe it as very Metroid-like?
Yes, to say the least. Um, to a point where I think people less charitable than me would say that it is a almost direct copy. There are graphical tiles that are literally taken from Metroid. There's bubble tiles that you have to get a chute to get to the hidden elements underneath. There are tubes that if you've ever played Metroid, you'd know from the Mother Brain stage that are direct. But that being said, I don't think it's meant to be a thievery. I think it's meant to be a loving tribute to the Metroid Explorer and run and gun style of game, the 8-bit original one anyway, not the three-dimensional ones that are first-person shooters later on. It is very much. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing, and it's a whole love letter to Metroid.
That being said, I'm not as experienced in the whole Metroid bit as Mark here is, so that's why I thought it'd be great to have you on the channel to kind of give a great comparison of the two, because something that this game is directly connected to anytime people usually talk about it.
Yeah.
So, but yes, actually getting back to the story, and this doesn't really spoil anything because you'll find this out like as soon as you start the game. But it starts off the main character here is working in his lab. Some kind of explosion happens, should have died, and ends up in this other world that's completely bizarre, completely never seen it before, and it's up to him to try and figure out what's going on. And as he does, there are these entities talking to him and trying to give him hints, and you're not sure if they're good, if they're bad, but you know, he kind of goes through it and trying to unravel the puzzles of this entire world that's going on. Is he dead? Is he alive? You're not really sure as you play. It kind of draws you in. I think that was my favorite, or not my favorite part, but another great point of this game is that it was really hard to put down anytime like it was getting late at night or I had to go and do something like run an errand. I never wanted to turn off. It was so good on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got that wonderful. You know what? We can even take it off of Metroid Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That whole, if I just stick around I just want to get one more power up. I just want to see one more area. I just want to, and that's a hook, and that's what great video games are made of. And one of the things you get, I guess, when you find out that there's no areas, you get a gun called the Axiom Disruptor, and it can be modified much like Samus's armor can be modified. Like I said, with various and sundry power-ups that are great little puzzle elements. Very fluid, very fun, and if you just have not even that much patience with it, it will tell you a story that's really interesting and unique.
Yeah, good stuff all around. So yeah, and got any final thoughts on it?
I'm delighted with this game. I wish we had a 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 kind of rating system. It would be either 4 or a 9 depending on what you do. I can't believe one guy devoted this much effort to it. It's an 8-bit work of art, and that's saying something. 8-bit's hard to work with, and this guy does it, and it's excellent. And I think the character of Trace, the main character, I'm hoping that we'll see more from Trace. It's like we saw more from Samus.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I would love nothing more than a sequel, or at least some kind of spiritual successor, even. Or
yeah, it would be wonderful. Yeah.
Anything else from this guy would just be amazing, just based off this game.
And this is the kind of stuff that brought me back to just the simple fun times of having an NES and being just totally amazed at what this system can do, as opposed to, the limitations of the system that were readily apparent to a lot of other people. And this takes that whole type of gaming and that whole type of programming and really just, like I said, it's the whole thing is a love letter. It's a kiss, hello, and goodbye to the franchises. And I look forward to seeing what this artist or programmer does in the future.
Yeah, actually, shortly after I played this game, I turned on my SNES Classic and I turned on Super Metroid for a little bit, and I got into that for a few hours. I didn't have the time to get back to it, and I still haven't gotten back to it, but what I did play I loved. It's like, okay, this is like, the source material right here. And yeah.
You saw what I was talking about.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Good stuff all around. It kind of makes me wish I'd gotten into Super Metroid earlier, or even, well, some other kind of Metroid.
Yep. I played that game like 5 or 6 times, and I loved it each time. And this was, and again, even though it has the same, similar gameplay tropes, I mean, if you I can't stress that this is very much a unique product, and it'll give you something totally its own. You'll enjoy this on a different level from Metroid at the same time. Trace is not Samus, and it comes out. So there you
go. Indeed. All right, well, that's all I got for today. You got anything else, Dad?
Nope.
All right, well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for checking us out, and we will judge you next time.